Whoa.
Yes, whoa.
Huh? Did we just go live just as I said, whoa?
Yeah.
Amy's marveling at modern technology right now.
You're like, ooh.
Ooh.
That's a decent response to modern life. I would say that's pretty much what we all need to be doing every day.
Indeed, indeed.
Do you have something to show me?
Are we launching straight into my new the new addition to my life?
I think we should. I mean, that's all you're thinking about, let's face it.
That's all I'm thinking about. Okay, everyone, I would like to show you my new Apple Watch that is right here. And as you can see, it's got a bunch of amazing things that I can do. For example, my Mickey Mouse watch face, which is pretty sensational. Pretty much, this Apple Watch, it blows me away. There's so much stuff that I can do on this, and it just, again, it makes me look at modern technology and just think, thank goodness I'm alive.
So this is Naomi Brockwell of the Moving Picture Institute. I'm Jeffrey Tucker of Liberty.me, and I am so excited about Naomi's new Apple Watch because my understanding is that an Apple Watch permits you to click one button and get a burrito.
Yeah? Is that, would you buy an Apple Watch purely for that purpose?
But when I think about Apple Watches, I think about the fact that you can push a button in the shape of a burrito.
I mean, that goes hand in hand, doesn't it? You think of Apple Watches and you think of burritos. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, look, Naomi, this happened to me. Okay, so there's a guy in my office who has an Apple Watch, and my first thought is, I don't need that. And then he goes, watch this.
And then he went, oh, I see.
And he pressed the button, and then 10 minutes later, a guy with a burrito showed up.
No, it's sensational. I have gotten into the habit of camera stalking people because I have a remote control on my wrist currently, and I love taking pictures. I mean, I'm a filmmaker, and I love still photographs, I love moving pictures, I love them all, and I don't stop taking them. But people always get angry at me. Now I can take pictures with my phone sitting there, and it's not like obtrusive, it's not in people's faces, they don't have to alter what they're doing, put on this, you know, fake smile or anything like that. You can just capture the moment.
It's like that?
Yeah, so I can put my phone up here, and then where is it? There, and then secretly there, and then it's taking pictures.
Can you? Are you going to make the world's first film from the? No, are you saying that the Apple Watch actually has a camera on it?
It doesn't have a camera, but it has a remote control for your device. It's pretty cool.
So you can put the device. I mean, how would you use that actually? I'm just.
So, I mean, for all of the narcissists in the world, you can put this over in a nice place where everyone can get into a photo, and you can step away from it. It doesn't have to be in arm's reach anymore. I can put my phone, you know, over here. Where is it so you can see it? There. Ah, it's not really working. And then I can get some nice pictures of the back of my head. It's going to be sensational.
So it's a kind of a wireless selfie stick.
Pretty much a wireless selfie stick. I got an Apple Watch purely for the purposes of a very expensive wireless selfie stick. It made sense to me at the time. I'm terrible with impulse purchase. All right, watch my phone light up. Wait, it's about to light up. Wait, it's connecting. See, it just lit up. I can take a picture of whatever that is right now.
You know, the good thing about
interesting.
Naomi, the good thing for me about this is that it means that basically the selfie stick is the physical selfie stick is now depreciated as a technology. And I don't own one, right? But it means now I don't have to own one.
Right.
Because
become obsolete.
Because they're obsolete. Yeah.
Okay. It's like waiting for the next Apple phone. You know, if you're between Apple phones, you don't know, oh gosh, 3 months has passed. I know that between 3 and 6 months they're going to introduce a new phone. Do I purchase something now or do I wait?
Right.
You know?
So basically now if you walk around with a selfie stick, everybody's going, huh, doesn't have an Apple Watch.
Exactly. That's pretty much it. I couldn't be one of those people, Jeffrey. I couldn't allow that in my life. It was not something I wanted for myself.
You know, I have to admit to you that I'm you know, when we fall behind in technology, we always invent all kinds of rationales, right? Because to our own minds, we can never be wrong, and there's a reason why we hung on to our old tech, right? We always believe this, right? So I'm in this weird position of believing this about myself, right? So I have this iPhone 5S. I have not upgraded to the 6 because I love my phone and like watch that. But there's a more important consideration. If I may, just demonstrate this, okay? So here's my phone. When I put it in my pocket, do you see it? Do you see it?
I don't see it.
You don't see it. That's the point. If I have a 6, it raises above the point.
See, you and I are very different. I walk around with my Apple product in plain view in a way that I can't hide it. So when people look at me, they immediately see it and say, she has Apple products. She's an Apple kind of girl. And then if they're going to point that out to me, then I pull out my iPad and my computer in the background and all of my Apple products. And
I understand. You know, I had a strange thing happen to me the other day. I was on you know, what was I doing? I was doing something. I don't remember. But anyway, it said, I was trying to buy a book on one device I have, and it said, I'm sorry, you can't buy this book. You can't read this book on this device. You can still buy it. But if you get it, you're going to have to transfer it to another device because you have something like 7 Apple devices already enabled. Has this happened to you?
That's sensational. That I enjoyed.
So
that
I was like,
story.
whoa, that's not even possible. Then I began to gather up all my things. Well, sure enough, here's 7. You know.
So speaking of technology, we've both seen a bunch of films recently that talk about that in some respect. You just saw Jurassic World, and you told me very briefly before this started what your views are, but I would like you to elaborate.
Do we want to start with it? You know, Naomi, you and I argue so often, so much, so often, that sometimes I think it's good for us to just have a civil conversation. I mean, right?
Is that even possible? We're such argumentative, nasty people, Jeffrey.
Well, we do disagree often and profoundly, and it sometimes gets nasty. I mean, you know, there's never long-term hurt or anything like that, but you know, so
just
now
give me 2 seconds. I just need to order a burrito so that it arrives while we're doing this. I just going to press this button. All right, continue.
Okay. I'm so glad you and I are agreeing on so much now. And by the way, today at lunch, I mentioned I contemplated buying what's that stuff? It's something quinoa salad or something.
Quinoa.
Quinoa, yeah, something. I contemplated for a very long time. Just as a anyway. So do you want to talk about this movie? Because I left like apart from the CGI, of course. Can I just tell you my view? Is it okay?
All right, tell me. Go launch straight in.
So first of all, I couldn't think about the movie during the movie. All I was thinking about was like work. Okay, that's a problem. When you're at a movie and all you can think about is your next article, your next editorial. You know, the movie was a little bit boring to me. I mean, the CGI was fun, right? But beyond that, I mean, the plot was ridiculously linear. It had no real, and the love thing in it was, you know, yes, I like the strong woman and the amazing, you know, sort of smelly guy who becomes. And the cute kids, and you know, and then the bad military man who, you know, and so on, you know, and the amazing ethnic, you know, sort of helicopter flyer, you know, who died. But everybody was an archetype, and in the end, I just felt like it was a massive criticism of consumer culture. I just can't. I mean, the whole purpose of the park was to attract visitors. The point of the upgrade of the dinosaur was to get the newest thing, because of course nobody wants to come unless you have the newest thing. And you know, criticism of science, that science is going too far. Oh, GMOs. Oh, you know, stop making cool stuff for consumer use. I mean, can you not see that this movie was actually a massive implicit attack on modernity as we know it?
So here's my response to that. I also really enjoy how every movie review we do goes back to capitalism and how it's a commentary on that. Most films are a commentary on capitalism, whether the director realizes that or not. So I loved the film. I really loved it, and I definitely see what you're saying. There were elements of that, but I don't think that they were
decisive.
Well. So there were a lot of things going on, right? I loved the film because it was so nostalgic, and I thought it was so clever the way that they brought that nostalgia in, even having the original gates in the film. By the way, tune out if you don't want spoilers, because there are going to be spoilers. but you know, the old gays and the guy wearing the t-shirt and all of these references to basically a film that came out 20 years ago, 22
A
years ago.
dinosaur of a film.
And I mean, gosh, I was a little kid when that film came out, right? And I
Mm.
loved it, and it just took me back to this world. And for me, the film was all nostalgia. It was just like, oh, you know, I really enjoyed going back into that world. So I definitely see what you're saying with the whole like genetic modification, the indictment of that. But I mean, there were a lot of things that went on right. There was some back and forth. It wasn't just like, oh, you know, genetically modified things are really bad. This is a new thing that we've done, and this is the bad thing. Because they said in the film, no, actually, we're not doing anything different. All of this, none of this is natural. We brought dinosaurs back from the dead. This has been going on for 20 years in this park. Like, why are you acting like it's something new? We just wanted bigger and better. But basically, the dinosaurs we even hatched before were bigger and better. That's not really what dinosaurs looked like, you know. So there was some sort of an equaling of that discussion. But you're right, it did have an undertone of hating a little bit on technology. That being said, I don't know, I was enjoying the nostalgia so much that I just lapped it up.
So Naomi, I have to ask you about this one. There's this very funny moment in the film, right? Women character. Well, every character in the movie is fascinating. I mean, the guys are all archetypes, right? You know,
Of course.
Yeah, the.
Big strong man. That's another reason why I loved it, right, Jeffrey? You had the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy. So I was.
Oh, is that who that was? Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. What? Yeah. The arms, right? And the T-shirt, and he's stinky, and he knows how to. Like,
I know.
Train
Like,
dinosaurs.
he's so like dangerous, and he's in the cave.
Oh,
It's like, oh, he's such a man, you know.
Right.
I'm
Now,
like,
now, but can I say something about the woman, if I might, if I may? And men, when we talk about these subjects, are always treading on dangerous ground. So please, forgive me if I get something wrong. But you know, so she starts as this professional, right? She's like this manager, and she's affecting this kind of like, well, we must have profitability. Look at the balance. Look at the income statements, you know, and she's all about business, you know, and she doesn't know the names of her nephews or their ages. Oh, I'm so appalled she doesn't know. Do you know the ages of your nephews? I don't. I mean, you know what, you know. What, anyway, so we're supposed to be appalled by that, you know, because she's so focused on business, you know. But there comes a moment where yes, of course, she meets up with the brilliant guy, you know, whatever. And so she decides to go, capture the bad dinosaur with him. But do you remember what happens? How she signals that she's all in?
The jacket's off and ties around her waist and hitches up there. She stands there and the guy looks at him and goes, what? Sorry, what was that meant to mean? Like, I'm ready. It's like, oh, okay, let's go.
So I have some sense that. And again, this is dangerous territory, but I have some sense that women more than men are under the impression that if they change their wardrobe, it changes their personality. I mean, am I wrong? I mean, so at this moment in the movie, she's got the same clothes on. She's like, "Oh, so you just think I'm a businesswoman? What's this?" And so she tears off her.
Well, Jeffrey, I'm going to put this question to you. What sort of a man would you be here tonight on this call if you were not wearing a bow tie? Would you be Jeffrey Tucker? I'm not sure that you would.
Okay, fair enough. But the instant transformation of her from business girl to warrior, just by taking off her white blazer.
So you know what the main message that I got from this film was? For me, it was like this educational video, and I watched it and took notes, you know, because this woman is a superhero. She is running from dinosaurs in stiletto heels this big.
Why didn't they break, by the way? Why did this?
Yeah, because she's a superhero.
No,
that's the moral of this story. Her heels don't break because she has mastered the art of running through swampy marshland in stiletto heels. This is fantastic. This is a lesson to all women out there who are aspiring to be a warrior with cool clothes that represent their warriorness.
Heels? I mean, there was this moment very late in the film where her legs are covered in mud and she's been beaten to death by pterodactyls.
But her shoes looked great. So she has some mad skills there, Jeffrey.
You still got 3 inches, 3.5 or 4 inches on, right?
Yeah, no, and her hair went from like severe and stark and all of this to like this kind of fun like
I know.
curly thing, and I was like, oh, I love her style. So I'm just the wrong person to be
I mean,
talking to about how bad this movie is, because I'm just
you
like,
know,
yeah, she does red really well.
I know. See, I'm just now realizing you are far too superficial a person to actually review movies. You should not be reviewing movies.
No, I just thought she was. I mean, she's a hilarious character, right? I honestly, the fact that she could be a warrior in those heels, I'm not sure that I could. You know,
Yeah.
I think of myself as like a warrior for freedom, and
Yeah.
I couldn't do it all in heels.
No, I mean, and there were moments, right at the end where everybody's hiding in a truck and the pterodactyl or whatever, the dinosaur, like fingernails were like, reaching into the truck and trying to grab their.
And then she brings out the nail polish. She's like, "Oh, you'd look much better with this color." No, that didn't really happen.
I mean, really, but and by the end, I mean, truly, nothing surprising happened, like at all. And there's something else weird about it. And I think this comes back to the rating system, and I would be very curious about your comments about this, really, because I have some sense that like movies have been weirdly distorted since the 1935 or whatever, whenever the Hayes Commission first came out. But I always have some sense that the rating system skews the moral messages of films. I mean, this film, how many people died? I mean, a lot, right?
Yeah. No, I think you're right there. I mean, let's not even get started.
You're not really left with a sense of carnage. I mean, there's that scene at the end where there's the whole room of like wounded people, and they have like a wrap around their arms, and oh, here's a Band-Aid on my head,
Mm-hmm.
Well, as far as I could tell, like thousands of people died.
Yeah.
And yet we're not allowed to see it because it's PG-13.
Yeah, no, I mean the rating system in film, like let's not even talk about that, because that's a whole other issue. I mean, I don't doubt that there's a whole lot of deals that are made with that sort of thing, because it does affect the outcome of the film. Your
I
rating
think
is
it must. I mean, I was overwhelmed with the carnage. Just like objectively.
Yeah. So Jeffrey, one question that they're asking in the chat is thoughts on cloning a dinosaur. Yes, no, maybe. Like, would we support it if it was actually a possibility?
I mean, I'm sure you would answer as I would, which is that sounds like the greatest thing ever. And
well, you know what? I saw that film. The reason why I didn't see that film as like an indictment of technology is because I saw that film and saw the world's greatest theme park ever created.
Absolutely, but the insurance rates on that theme park would be very high.
Yeah, I thought about that. It's really not feasible. But if it were, I mean, in the back of my mind, because I saw this film when I was young, and you're impressionable then, it stays in your mind. In my head, Jurassic Park is actually a real place, and it's actually been invented. That makes me happy, to see a film with this amazing theme park where they've been able to bring extinct animals back from the dead. This is incredible technology. I saw this film and was like, yes, this is what we have achieved. It's fantastic. There may have been bad stuff that happened in the first film, then 20 years passed and bad stuff didn't happen, right? So they clearly managed the park very well.
That's a fascinating sort of meta level understanding of this film, because it's in that sense, what you're saying is that this movie is a lot like Wall Street, or many other films that are made with a definite ideological agenda. Don't like capitalism, don't like technology, don't like progress and consumerism. But the viewer walks away and goes, I want
to be like him. Yeah. No, totally. I watched the film, and not only did I feel severe pressure to learn to run in stiletto heels, but I also want to visit this theme park. It's sensational. I mean, those globes that they were trotting around in, that were just rolling around, being near these triceratops, I was like, this is sensational.
And wasn't it annoying how bored everybody was with it?
Oh, my God. And that guy... Yeah, he's like on his phone the whole time, and it's just, I could,
Like, come on, you got dinosaurs running around you, buddy.
Exactly. And but that guy was, too cool for school, and I'm sure all the young girls loved that sort of character, the one who's like, chasing all the skirts in the film. I'm watching this thinking like, come on, there are dinosaurs there.
Well, there were
There are
two.
dinosaurs.
He was, as far as I could tell, he was about 16 years old, right?
Yeah, so that sounds about right for
Yeah, and he
dinosaurs.
had a,
Come on.
I know, and there were two little love interests he had, that were sort of fleeting.
Yeah.
Actually, I must say that those charmed me a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was funny. I mean, just the little brief infatuations that were pictured,
Yeah, that was pretty funny. That was pretty funny.
that was charming. That I enjoyed that. No, it was, I mean, but in the end, I could have done without it, and I would have much rather seen Tomorrowland, which apparently you've seen.
Yeah, I've seen Tomorrowland. I really loved it. So many people hate these movies that I seem to love, but I loved the look of Tomorrowland. I loved the idea, that the future is ours to create. Basically, Tomorrowland, I don't want to ruin it for you because you haven't seen it, but basically it's the idea that the future was bright and there was all this hope, and it was almost like this Gulch type scenario where the best and brightest minds all congregate in this place and create this future with all this amazing technology. There's no one there to stop them. It's just a place where people are free to try out things and experiment, and I fell in love with it, right from the outset. And then what happens is things sort of turn and you realize that the future wasn't as bright as they had imagined. It's darker. There's, the media is just swamped with all of this negative images, and there's a huge negative media bias, right, about everything that's going on in the world, because if it bleeds, it leads, the old saying with news. So that's what we're surrounded by. We're surrounded by all this doom and gloom, and it's the idea that it doesn't have to be that way. That's just the way we're painting it. And as soon as you start to be hopeful again about the future, you can change things and you can create the world you want. It's like, The Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley or The Independence by Nick Gillespie, books that, and you've written extensively on this as well, Jeffrey, about how we're living in the best time in history. This is beautiful. The technology at our disposal. You would not want to be anywhere else. This is the time, and we should all be so excited. Not worried and continually horrified about the things around us. Yes, let's fight to make it better, but let's not think that this is a really awful time. We have so much. So we are so lucky right now. So we should be making the most of all of the great things we have and fighting so that everyone gets to enjoy these freedoms. Right?
Well, is there a connection between Galt's Gulch and Atlas Shrugged and Tomorrowland?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, the director, Brad Bird, he has been written up quite a few times as being an objectivist, and he's denied this and said, yes, I read Rand when I was younger, but no, she doesn't have any hold in my life. I dismissed those ideas as unrealistic, the typical thing that someone in Hollywood would say. But you see, I mean, in one of his other films, The Incredibles, it definitely has strong objectivist ideology in there, right? And so I just feel, I felt like it did feel, it seems like it was this Galt's Gulch with these amazing people.
Well, here's the thing about ideas. I mean, people are too anxious to trace direct connections. Like if the producer denies there's a relationship between objectivism and the film. I mean, you don't have to actually. That doesn't actually matter. I mean, ideas enter our head, and they mutate and they're malleable. And it can come out looking very different from the way it came in. And even if the creator denies that connection, it doesn't mean there's not a connection.
Right, exactly.
That's the way ideas work, actually.
Yeah, no, definitely. I thought that the film was very positive. It filled me with hope. That's what I love in a film, I love a film that makes me excited about life. It makes me inspired. Something I didn't see Jurassic World as being like a pessimistic film about GMOs. If anything, I saw it as a film that was against warfare. The main bad people in the film were people who wanted to use this amazing technology not for enjoyment and pleasure, which is what it should be there for. This amazing amusement park where people can go and experience this, land before time. Instead, people had perverted that technology to use it for warfare, for military efforts. I thought it was an indictment of military forces. And
another way to see the film, and I'm just kind of toying with this idea. Actually, I thought about it as I left the theater, and then, by the way, I have a habit of saying, theater the same way you do.
Theater.
Theater.
I think you say it very well. I like your pronunciation.
And you probably noticed that I do this, and it's a habit I have. I got it from this great movie All About Eve, which is by Betty Davis. It was Betty Davis in it. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but All About Eve, they always say theater. And so ever since I saw that, I suppose. But anyway, one possible interpretation, too, is a story of unintended consequences. Like, we create these enormous animals. We think we can contain the world. We here's the geography. Here's our plans. They're best laid. We're trying to do the thing. You know, we know exactly how everything's going to turn out. But then nature takes its course. Right? So in a ways that are scary. So in a way, you could see that as a metaphor for war in general. I mean, Iraq War, right?
Well, I mean, anyone who wants to centrally plan the economy or anything like that, centrally plan society, makes a lot of presumptions about people. You know, Marx's labor theory of value, all of this makes a lot of presumptions about how people behave without taking into account that people act with individual motives and they need certain incentives and all of these things. And what I liked about Jurassic World is that it almost humanized the dinosaurs and said that they have these minds of their own. They can choose their own leader. They can choose their own path, no matter how you try to control them. Centrally plan what you're putting them out there.
Oh, and the tracker, the dinosaur just pulls it out, right? You know,
that was amazing.
That was amazing.
I was rooting for the dinosaur at that stage. I have to be honest. I was like, this guy is amazing. I'm sorry, but maybe humans aren't all we think we are. This dinosaur is the evolution, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, and another way to think about the dinosaur population in that planet is maybe this is ISIS, because, you know, in a weird way, and I don't know how much you're interested in this topic, but there is a kind of lineage between the Mujahideen that was supported as the anti-communist freedom fighters in the 1980s, and ISIS in 2015 that's terrorizing, you know, the whole Middle East. I mean, it's the same fundamentalist ideology. A lot of the same mentors. You know, they all get their weapons from the U.S. military establishment. Yeah. And it's an unfolding of a kind of an unintended process. So, you know, in the same way that the dinosaurs began as a kind of amusements that we look at, and then they eventually turn on us.
Right. Yeah,
and we can look at that as the same way with U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. You know,
well, that did seem. I mean, I don't want people to interpret that as we should never create technology because we may create it for good, but it could be used for bad. I think rather look at it from an intervention point of view, from a military point of view, because really that was the crux of the story, right? It was people who wanted to come in, change the whole philosophy of this park, make these things into killing machines to use against other countries, to use to defend, you know, to defend America, but really for a interventionist protection, right? And then it all blew up in their faces. They made a whole lot of false calculations about what would happen. They bet on the wrong team. Maybe there's a nice pattern or similarity there. Not that America's
what this tells me about you, Naomi, is that you're more, even more, insufferably willing to put a good spin on things than I am. You know, so. You know.
I love the descriptor insufferably as well. Let's talk about Mad Max, because I know that you love that film, and I was absolutely blown away by this film. The attention to detail, the character development without dialogue was just masterful. The world that they created, the traditions they created in this world without ever telling us this is a tradition. You know, just the thing, I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah, from beginning to end, and do you know that I saw it twice?
Did you? I cannot blame you. I
had to, because the first time I was so overwhelmed, you know, by the amazingness.
The guitarist just there. I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh. But there were things I missed in the and there's big controversy, of course, about the film, whether or not it's feminist. I find these complaints about this to be ridiculous. I mean, to the extent it's feminist, you know.
Yeah, I can't handle things like that.
I know. I mean, but you know, it was a world of radical material deprivation, and in that world, people are not allowed to be moral, and of course,
exactly.
Women,
yeah, we've spoken about this before.
Have we on camera?
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, when Dracula was another example of this, a world
Oh
of
yeah,
subsistence
yeah, yeah.
living doesn't allow people the
I
freedom of
see this.
ethics. You know, I hate when people draw conclusions. I mean, when they ask you to explain behavior and what you would do in a situation if you were in this completely different situation where it was subsistence living. Like, if you were on a desert island, would you do that? It's like, no, of course I wouldn't. It's a completely different context, you know. Like, just because I choose to do it now, we have a lot more options at our disposal. We don't have to do those things. We don't have to kill each other. We can just trade with each other. We have incredible, you know, specialization, diversification of skill set. We can trade with each other. We don't have to kill each other, and the world is a better place if we trade. Back
I was
then,
still in
you know, different
right,
moral options, right?
and I was intrigued too. And I don't know if you caught this. If you only saw it one time, and I don't know, I don't remember enough about the Mad Max story, although I used to obsess about it when I was a kid. But you know, the reason do you know there was mother's milk in her truck, right? That was the whole point. And she was driving to deliver it to the factory that was, you know, several miles away. You could see in the distance where they produced gasoline.
Mm.
Yeah, and so her idea was that she delivers the milk in exchange for the gasoline, comes back, and there's a barter economy essentially. But she takes she diverts on the road you know, instead of making this exchange, she decides to pursue a kind of liberation of these people who've been stolen to you know, provide the milk, right? And escape, go away with them, and that was the opening scene. But it goes by so quickly you can't quite follow it.
Right,
At least
yeah.
I couldn't the first time.
Yeah. No, it's interesting how you talk about the barter economy. It sort of makes you wonder about the evolution of money and how money started, right? If you're talking about different things that societies value, that they know are going to be fungible, that are going to be easily divisible, that that you would be willing to accept because you know that the next person is going to be willing to accept it in return. Really, that's what you want from a money, something that you know is going to be worth something to someone else, so you can continue to just trade it for what you want. Now, in this world, obviously gold isn't going to be worth anything to them, right? Because
Right.
that's not something they find useful at all.
Much
You
less
have to
paper
be,
money, right?
yeah, you have to be a rich enough society in order to have gold as a money for the society. Because if it, I mean, it has no value. In this society, it's such a subsistence level that you needed a barter economy. It's like the world needed to evolve from a barter economy, then to, you know, different types of money, and then to, you know, more advanced economic systems. It needed to go in that order, right? Because we started out a lot poorer, and as society progressed, then money was a result of a wealthier society. It was a society that could value these luxury goods, where these luxury goods had a place in the society. Not for everyone, but it's good enough that they have a place for the wealthy people, and that they are wealthy people willing to buy the gold off you. You know, it's interesting to reflect on the beginning.
Well, and there's an element to hear about politics too, which is fascinating because, of course, the movie, as would be inevitable, was cited as a critique of anarchy, right? This is what happens when you don't have a state. But I mean, the appalling thing
No, this
about
is what happens when you have a state.
when
There
you
were a
have
bunch
a
of
state.
dictators who are ruling it. If that is not a government, I don't know, you know, what is.
That's right. So you have the dictator at the top, and let me just point out something here what I found very interesting. So this dictator at the top, you know, who's like corralling the women to provide the mother's milk and sending people off, you know, to deliver it for gasoline. He's in charge of everybody, and he doles out he owns all the resources, of course, and he doles them out, you know, a little bit at a time, you know, by pulling the switch and feeding the population water. You know, what I found most interesting about that was the rationale that he used to perpetuate his rule, and he creates around himself a religious cult.
Yeah.
So this is very interesting from a political theory point of view, because even in the case of this Mad Max world, it's never enough to just assert power own all the resources and have all the weapons. You still have to inspire people.
Yeah.
And so he sets himself up, and I forget, as Molten Joe or whatever, right? He sets himself up as the mediator between earth and heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And he's bamboozled all these people. It's like, the more obedient you are to me, the more likely it is you are to get to heaven.
That seems like a pattern through history, doesn't it?
Exactly. And what I think is really important is that the religious cult surrounding, am I saying this right? Immortan Joe, something like that. The important thing is that this religious cult that he fabricates is purely based on an idea. It's not enforced by guns. It's not. It's nothing else. And it's purely just a concept that he has to implant in the minds of all of his followers, and they do indeed sort of go along with it. And the first time I watched it, I didn't understand, this whole point about, you remember when, like, people would spray paint their mouths, their teeth?
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, do you understand what that was about?
I mean, it was this amazing tradition that they created, right? You knew that they were about to die and go to Valhalla, and that was their, like, how they were going out, right? It was like it seemed like a signaling device, like a marker to let people know that they were about to die for glory.
And don't you? I'm purely speculating here, but do you not think that the chrome on the teeth was to signal that they're going to heaven as a car? Because like your teeth have become the chrome bumper of the car, because the car is the most valued resource in the world.
Wow.
So you become the most valued resource by spray painting your teeth with.
I love that idea. Yeah. No, I can see what you mean. That's very interesting. It's funny.
Because that's the most valued resource, right?
Yeah.
So we always imagine heaven. Heaven consists essentially as the most valued thing on earth.
Whether it's gilded or it's
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So our conceptions of heaven are, there's lots of iPhone 6s, and you can order a burrito.
With your watch. Where is my burrito, by the way? This is taking far too long. I'm getting a return on this. One of my friends sent me a link to an Amazon product. It was the silver spray paint, and they're reading the Amazon user reviews was hilarious. What I love these days is that you have such an interplay with. I'll explain in a second. You have this incredible interplay these days when you have films, but then you have them interacting with reality through all of the social media and all of that. Like, we all share and participate in these games where we pretend to still be in the film, and we do that on Reddit or on Tumblr or on Facebook or all of these places, but this is now it's gone over to Amazon as well, and you know how you buy products there and you have all the user reviews, and you had all of these people going onto this silver spray paint on there and saying, will this help me get to Valhalla, and I'm like making all of these Mad Max.
So it was okay, so it wasn't silver spray. So I thought what you meant was that somebody who created a product of basically edible silver spray paint. So
no, I think I can't remember exactly, but it was very funny.
That is really funny. I love our world, right?
Yeah, I love our world.
It's a great world. We're always slightly one step behind. Of course, you're only just like half a step behind. I'm like one, but.
Good half a watch. Right? Just letting you all know, I am only half a step behind.
I am so 2014 with my iPhone. I'm it's a dreadful feeling.
Reminds me of when we went to the Toronto Bitcoin convention a couple of years ago now, I think it must have been, and just marveling at all these people who seem to just be 10 years ahead of us, The world is still grappling with Bitcoin. We're still wondering, what is this thing? Is it going to last? Is there any value? And all these people at these conventions already recognize that this has tremendous value. They've moved on to the next thing, Bitcoin 2.0.
Well, you remember at that convention, people are only then talking about multi-sig transactions.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they're standard.
Yeah.
Standard issue. So, yeah.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, I'm so glad you like Mad Max. I was thrilled by it from the first to the last. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it was like one of the great movies I've seen, in years. Really, I just went nuts for it. And I have to tell you something. It was when I was younger and I saw the old Mad Max films.
Hmm.
I remember I had recently sort of become an anarchist. And I watched them, and I did wonder, have I embraced a worldview that's like Mad Max? I mean, but I wasn't quite like, I hadn't put it all together to the point that I realized that actually this is a state of nature, basically, one step above it. Where a ruling class has seized resources and acquired monopoly power over weaponry plus religion, and we're systematically depriving the world of the possibilities of progress. And it's very obvious to me now when I watch the new Mad Max. I don't know if this is different from the old one, but in the new one, I would have to go back and watch it. But in the new one, it's very obviously a critique of an authoritarian state.
Yeah.
And a great tribute to the how willful individuals can change the world.
Yeah,
Essentially.
it's that those anti-anarchist arguments always really annoy me because I always feel like they come from a very uninformed place. People who haven't really thought through what anarchy is. Like, how do you define it? Is it no rule at all? Is it no people are just suddenly murderers? That's their instinct. Is that the world that they envision? Like, I went to a conference maybe a couple of months ago, and I believe I was the only person there who would define themselves as an anarchist. And we were talking about things, and I kept kind of bringing up these points, and everyone kept citing Mad Max. Mad Max hadn't come out at that stage. All we saw were the trailers. There's trailers of people with, like, silver on their teeth, and they've all, Charlize Theron has a shaved head, and she's like vicious, and the guy next to him is like, has a giant mask, and everything is like vicious, and it's like a dog eat dog world. It's not a world for you or me. And they kept basing their arguments on, well, anarchy equals Mad Max, right?
Yeah, I know, right?
Such an inversion of the truth, right?
But Naomi, can I ask you a question? Because I find it very intriguing. When we first brought up this movie, when I first mentioned, or you did, or something like that, the very first thing you mentioned about the film was the guitar player.
Yeah.
So I'm like good at the whole Freudian psychology thing. Clearly, this is what stood out to you more than anything else. Can you tell me why?
You're going to tell me why.
Oh, you're right. Well, you might be a musician.
Anyone would think that I might have a degree in classical music. Yeah, no, I saw that and I was just like, what an incredible world. It was the futuristic version of the war drums, right? These people were going to war, and there's something so powerful about music. That's why you use music everywhere. You use music at funerals, or going off to war with a military march, or at a party, or at a nightclub, or all of these things. Like, music is what grabs us, and I just loved how music was involved in this movie. It wasn't a score that was put over the top. It was all the way through. It was part of the
drums,
film.
the pounding on the, and it was unnecessary. I mean, why do you suppose Immortan Joe had to have musicians traveling with him? Why is that?
He needs his fighters to be inspired. You look at the fighters. I mean, what I loved about the film was that he had these suicidal kamikaze fighters at his disposal who all wanted to die for him, and he created this world. In order to have those sorts of characters, the director needs to be so clever, right? He needs to do so many things to back that up, because there has to be a justification. I mean, the viewer can only suspend their disbelief so long, right? You clearly didn't suspend your disbelief in Jurassic Park. You watched it and you saw through it and you're like, no way, right? Jurassic World. Now, in Mad Max, I don't think anyone watched that film and were like, no, I don't buy it. These people, why would they die? No, we all believed.
We were all there.
They were
We were
That's
there.
crazy, right? They were, and they had everything working to creating this. They had, this spray paint on their mouths and this, they're getting high on these.
Oh, and yeah, there's
and all of that, it's actually, they're using that as fuel for their system, and then they're going out and there's just like, and then you have this crazy distorted guitar that's just like, it's just everything works to back that up.
And the guys are drumming in the back, it's just great. I mean, look, if I were a dictator of that community, I would definitely hire a band to travel with me. I mean, that's just my own view.
Totally.
I'm not sure that
dictator of the world, he's going to have a traveling band. What instruments will you have? Will it be like a Baroque, like a quartet or something?
Yeah, it would most likely be standing violins with gut strings. and a little chamber organ,
Yeah.
So it's not exact, and probably I wouldn't inspire anybody. I would
You'd be standing out the front with your bow tie, saying like, "Would anyone like whiskey? Anyone like a bourbon?" I would say I can't drink alone, but if no one else wants to partake, fantastic.
I would get overthrown so fast, especially by the 7 wives or whatever.
It depends on the society, right? I mean, you realize more and more, especially watching these films where these directors are giving you a glimpse into a different kind of world. Like, what if this was the culture, right? Mad Max had an entirely different culture to any that we can visualize, and I think that the culture is what determines how a society or how a dictatorship can function. It isn't just like a dictator comes out and is like, no, I'm doing this thing. You have to have a culture that backs up that sort of mentality. Like if we had someone come into America right now and just like, hey everyone, you're gonna die for me, and people would be like, you're ridiculous. And even if he was like, I've got guitars and spray paint, and you can get high on fumes, people would be like, no, I'm just going to keep going with my job. I kind of like it, and because our culture doesn't support that sort of thing. In a world, you could be dictator of a certain type of world, right? It has to be a world
and a Jurassic World. Right. No, I think you make a very interesting point, actually, that the regime is always and everywhere as an outgrowth of the culture. Or another way to put it is that any ruling class must necessarily reflect the value system of the culture that it rules, or else it's not going to sustain itself for very long.
Yeah, and also the idea that if we want to change the world, we have to change the culture first. And I know you're 100% on board with this idea.
Yeah, I have to think about that just a little bit, because that's a roundabout method for political change, really.
But do you really believe that? Let's talk this through. So let's say that you have an entrenched political system and everyone's like, no, you have to do things by the book. You can't just go about and do this roundabout thing. What happens when you try to do things by the book in America? We have this entrenched system. It's a two-party system. You can't have any third party enter the debate or enter the competition at all. So really the people don't get a choice. They take the political system as it is. They have no avenue for change. If we want to change, I mean, these people are not statesmen. These are people who hold their finger up to the wind and say which direction is popular opinion blowing. Okay, I'm going to do that because that's going to get me reelected. Or they're holding their hand out to whichever lobbyists have the most money and can support their campaign, and then they're completely beholden to those people. So I believe that trying to change the political system is the roundabout method, and it's only by popular opinion shaping a culture. I mean, look at someone like Jon Stewart, for example. 20 years ago, Jon Stewart started, and it was a very different world, and he has shaped a culture. He has created a culture with his show. Millennials today get their news sources purely from Jon Stewart. Right? They do not.
Well, not purely. There's also BuzzFeed, don't they?
Oh, of course, other reliable sources like that.
Well, wait a minute. I actually am I'm a complete convert on the BuzzFeed question. I actually think it's brilliant. I'm in awe of this website. I think it's like ridiculously intelligent, and a tribute to the capacity of the web for the best to rise to the top. I mean, BuzzFeed is amazing, and you know what? So much more interesting. What are we gonna? You want to read the New York Times or BuzzFeed? I mean, come on.
No, I totally agree. Well, it depends on the article. It depends on the article. right?
No, it's true.
Because if BuzzFeed is going to be like the top 10 reasons why capitalism is ruining us all, I'm going to look at it and be like, oh, I want to see some data backing that up, whereas I might read some journal that has really gone into an in-depth analysis, or a book by Mises, and have a completely different
we
thing.
hope to inspire people to do these things, but at the end of the day, the funny and sort of revolutionary, sort of rebelliousness of users of digital technology, by whom we mean essentially, predominantly, the demographic of 16 to 30 or whatever, right? Because after which point people get sucked into the corporate establishment. Mm-hmm. Is that they dare to ignore the established means of delivering content.
Exactly. No, that's a really good point. You can't fight against something like that. Culture is shifting, tastes are shifting. I mean, I one of my degrees was in opera. I'm an opera singer. Opera is a dying art form, right? But now people are getting smart. They're not just doing conventional things as a tradition that was sort of started by Wagner. People are changing the opera form. They're changing the sensibilities of the modern population, right? You need to keep track of what people are interested in. I mean, you have great companies coming out of New York now, like New York City Opera is reopening, and they're doing some amazing things that is inviting people back into the culture, making it accessible again in a way that it hasn't been for a very long time. And news outlets like BuzzFeed, or I don't like Russell Brand, but he's another easily digestible format.
Yeah, that's true, and he's got some good opinions, actually. I mean, he's right on a lot of things, actually. So.
Well, I saw his Silk Road piece. I thought that was fantastic.
Well, but he's right on intellectual properties. He's right on war and peace. I mean, he's right on the ruling class. I mean,
he's incorrect on a lot of things too.
Yeah, true enough. By the way, can I take issue with your? I mean, this is definitely a diversion, but your prediction of opera's death, because.
Oh no, I'm not presuming that it's dying. I'm saying that if we try to keep it in the form that it was suitable for past audiences, then it will die. And what's great is that you're now seeing people putting it into more accessible formats.
Oh, that's right. I mean, because after I have, can I just make a prediction for you?
Please do.
Yeah, because I have some sense, and I'm not. I have good instincts, all right, and I can't back it up with data. I'm just saying that Henry Purcell's great English operetta called The Fairy Queen is about to become enormously popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a sense of that at all?
Is this something that's been keeping me awake at night? And I've been mulling over and thinking, if I'm going to make any prediction about the next 10 years, my prediction is going to be about Purcell, and his place in our culture. You and I are on totally the same page there, Jeffrey. That's where my mind went as well.
Well, it's a beautiful opera, and of course I inadvertently heard it, on where else but Google Play, right?
I think that I was in The Fairy Queen.
You were not in The Fairy Queen.
I think I was. Name me some.
Were you the Fairy Queen?
I have like a vague memory. Was there like a? No, there's a duet there with this. There's a duet between a guy and a girl, and she was like this haughty sort of and then.
You're thinking about Dido and Aeneas.
No, I'm not. I'm thinking of Purcell Fairy Queen.
Fairy Queen, okay.
Yeah. It's a long time ago, so I'm going to have to...
It's astonishingly brilliant. I'm thinking that maybe we need to stage a revival of The Fairy Queen pretty soon.
Yeah. I mean, if we'd had more time, we could have done it at Freedom Fest this year. Instead, it will have to wait until Freedom Fest next year.
Or we could do it on our next hangout.
Yeah, totally. Definitely. Well, I mean, that gives us a whole 2 weeks, right? So that should be enough time for me to brush up on the aria or the duet that I did before. So if you could learn the other part, that would be fantastic.
Well, the beautiful thing about opera before opera, which this is an excellent example, is that it was not tedious, at all. I don't think. Anyway.
It was incredibly enjoyable, very fun.
Just unrelenting delight. It didn't come back into the Zabafluta,
You know what? I recently saw a salon performance of Carmen, and it was incredible. So I've had these few experiences the last few weeks. There's someone in New York City who is very delighted by opera, and he has these salon performances where it's just like a party. You know, people go and they have hors d'oeuvres and drinks, and then he'll like bring out music books because he knows that most people at the party are musicians, and he'll put out music stands, and you'll just sight read, you know, a Mendelssohn octet, or you'll sight read.
I know your set.
Oh gosh.
I know about all these people. I know who you are.
Oh,
I know
incredible.
you. But can I just say something about Carmen real quickly? Bizet, right? I mean, this opera was the great European controversy of the 19th century,
right,
in an artistic sense. I mean, this opera was decadent. You know, it seemed to celebrate, you know, marginal peoples, you know, the sexuality and
this promiscuity and
I mean, it was outrageous. You know the. I mean, there's reviews of it, you know, at the time where, you know, people just walked out, you know, just appalled. The music is so lascivious, you know, to the 19th century ear, and I think it's really I mean, truly, this is, you could call it the porn, you know, of like, you know, 1870s or whatever the thing came, right? And it's funny to me now that we hear the tunes from this opera, and we think of it as classical music, you know.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Look, are you even just going back 20 years and seeing which films were considered, you know, scandalous, or especially going back 50 years, culture is just constantly changing. It's
you know, it's changing, but it's not. I mean, like when I look at I don't know if you're a fan of Busby Berkeley or not, you know, the early 30s musicals, but I find myself, and I'm a little bit oversensitive to these things, but I find myself scandalized by the content of these. You know what I mean? I mean, you're like, oh my God, I didn't know this was like R-rated, you know. So these things keep coming back, you know. Yeah. So, you know, there's it's just a sort of an undulating pattern.
You know what I'm excited about?
What?
I'm excited about the singularity. I'm excited about seeing the next 100 years and seeing what technology we have and how the, you know, medium of film has developed, whether we keep it in this this box like, oh, this was a, you know, 20th century, 21st century thing that existed. Let's go and revisit it, or whether it morphs into something else and it becomes, you know, like opera to operetta to musical theater to, you know, I am excited to see how our current
we have such a slight brief of time left because I have this.
You're going to head off, yeah.
Yeah, but can you quickly tell me? I'm curious about this because you're a trained musician, as am I. What is your response to film scores? Do you hear them when you're watching the film?
Oh yeah.
You do?
Oh yeah, I came out of Jurassic World singing, like I had that stuck like da 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 da.
Yeah, but
like but I mean I listen to film scores. Okay. I love that because it's basically program music, right? Yeah. That is essentially how that evolved into a modern day format. Now we have movie scores. You know, you don't have the program given out by the composer back in the day where it describes what this was about, and you know you hear everything going on and you follow the storyline. Instead, you get to watch the storyline evolve in front of you.
But am I right? That was John Williams' score. Am I wrong or right or wrong?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it sounds like it.
It sounds like it, right? Now, what about Mad Max? I mean, I don't even know. Right. It was brilliant.
I have that stuck in my head. You know what? Stuck in my head. Have you seen Kung Fury?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's an internet sensation. Go watch Kung Fury. That's your homework. I need to let you go because you've got your next thing. But you will have the David Hasselhoff song stuck in your head forevermore afterwards.
Well, I've got all the 50 Shades of Grey songs that's in my head forever. So, including Spem and Alium. But Naomi, you know, it's just delightful to talk to you. Thank you so much.
It's been wonderful, Jeffrey. Have a wonderful next hour. I will be watching.
Okay, all the best. Bye-bye.